It doesn't make a ton of sense. A failed auto mechanic and a former drug dealer from a small California town with no college and no experience in green energy comes up with an idea that's going to help revolutionize green energy, a solar generator on wheels called the Solar Eclipse. But who cares if it doesn't make sense? Jeff Karpoff's company, DC Solar, had big name companies lining up for them.
If you'd like to earn CPE credit for listening to this episode, visit earmarkcpe.com. Download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. Continuing education has never been so easy. And now, on to the episode.
This is Oh My Fraud, a true crime podcast where our criminals fake it until they're making license plates. I'm Caleb Newquist.
And I'm Greg Kyte.
Greg, I know you like a listener review to kick things off, and I have a great one for you.
I love listener reviews, and I can't wait to hear this one.
All right, this is from Joseph in the Earmark app, and he writes, "The profanity and taking the Lord's name in vain on this podcast were completely unexpected, unnecessary, and unprofessional. I won't be listening to episodes of Oh My Fraud in the future for this reason." Duly noted, Joseph. We're sorry to lose you as a listener, but we are still very grateful for your 5-star review.
Right? That's crazy, and that's so cool that he gave us 5 fucking stars on the app.
Goddamn, Joseph.
Was that on Apple or was that on Earmark?
That was on Earmark.
That's awesome. I also think I have to say, super Christ-like of him. Because he rebuked us, but still tried to encourage us. So
absolutely,
I like. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be be
right.
So
intentionally or not, he was doing the Lord's work right there.
He really was. And yeah, Joseph, Technicolor Dreamcoat or not, we appreciated your one download.
Yeah. All right, let's get right into our story. Jeff Karpoff had spent most of his life in Martinez, California. Greg, you been to Martinez?
I have never heard of Martinez, California. Is that That's Northern California?
Northern California.
Right? Okay.
It's in the North Bay. Yeah.
Okay.
If you look it on the map,
so still Bay Area. Okay.
Yeah. But not like. I mean, that drive into San Francisco from Martinez would not be pleasant. But
okay.
But it's still It's in the ballpark.
Cool.
Anyway. Jeff Karpoff had spent most of his life in Martinez, California. As a kid, he showed plenty of hustle. He was polishing used tires for 10 cents a piece, fixing junk cars, stocking shelves at the corner liquor mart. But post-high school, things weren't working out too well for old Jeff. He'd tried his hand at owning his own auto shop, and while he was a decent mechanic, he couldn't quite figure out the business side of things. 2 of his shops failed, and 1 got shut down for, quote, mishandling hazardous materials.
Yeah, you can't just dump that used motor oil down the toilet, Jeff.
No. So when the mechanic stuff didn't work out, he turned to the one option that everyone turns to when they have no options.
Selling furniture.
Very close. Just furniture filled with drugs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so he was selling drugs. He was
selling
just selling drugs. Okay.
Selling drugs. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I don't know about you, Greg, but I don't know why people choose to sell drugs. Even if they have like no options, it's I don't know. I think, do people think they can get rich doing it? Like it'll be like Scarface or something, that's how it's going to end up. Because I just argue that you have to make a lot of money. The only way to make a lot of money selling drugs isn't that different from making a lot of money doing anything else, which is you have to be very good and very lucky in order to like get super rich.
Yeah. No, I think that's correct. So as listeners may know, if they've listened to every episode of this podcast, my mom's she was a pharmacist. She's retired now.
Yep.
And I was trying to do the math. I think I spent like somewhere between 8 to 10 years, starting when I was 14, working at her pharmacy.
Wow.
And so I do have to say that from that much time in a pharmacy, I do consider myself somewhat of an expert on selling drugs.
Yes.
So
you should.
And so really your success as a person selling drugs is, do you accept the junkie's insurance? If you do, then I think you can, as long as you've got a good billing department, you can make
Yeah.
that. But actually, did you ever read Freakonomics, the book Freakonomics?
I did not.
He did not.
No.
They had a great chapter in there exactly about the economics of drug dealing.
Okay.
And it was very, very interesting. But one of the things that they said is that a lot of people will get into drug dealing, kind of like you said, that they're going, I can't make any money. And finally, I don't care about going to jail, or the risk is worth it, or something like that. And also, they believe that they can make tons of money. But the reason why is because everyone who is in the drug scene enough knows that there's like a guy selling drugs who seems to have all the money and is very much living a conspicuous consumption type of lifestyle. So since it's a very readily available piece of information that here's a guy who is selling drug, who is making tons of money, then you get into it assuming that you will also be able to make tons of money, but also you're a druggie working with criminals and you don't.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of it.
Right.
So, I mean, to sum up the Freakonomics guys, that's my best attempt.
Keen analysis.
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jeff wasn't any good at selling drugs either, because he was also addicted to them.
Oh, that's going to be a problem. If my mom was addicted to albuterol, she wouldn't have made quite as much money as a pharmacist.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Jeff was addicted to meth.
Okay.
And so, selling drugs and doing drugs that's a bad combo. I think that's been well documented.
Yeah. What is it? Don't your own supply. What? Don't get high on
Don't
your
get
own
high
supply.
on your own supply.
There it is. So that sort of recall comes from someone who has not done a whole lot of drugs in his life.
That's how well established the
Right.
understanding is.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, very quickly, Jeff was just selling drugs to pay the debts that he owed to other dealers. It got so bad that Jeff's mom, Rosalie, was getting threatening phone calls.
Like from the people that he owed drug money to?
Correctamundo.
Nice. That's
Getting
that's
your
a
mom
guy
in trouble.
Yeah.
Putting your mom in mortal danger.
So he's a winner. He's got multiple failed mechanic shops. He's living in his mom's basement selling drugs. So good CV at this point.
Right. But then Jeff married his high school sweetheart, Paulette. She helped him get clean, and together they opened a repair shop that specialized in Land Rovers.
Nice. Good niche.
You bet. Customers came up from the Bay Area to Martinez to get their swanky ass English SUVs fixed on the cheap. But things took a turn for the worse when Jeff tried to get into cut rate auto parts.
Okay.
He and a new partner had custom ordered a bunch of parts from Mexico, but according to a story in The Atlantic, they were so poorly built that one of their mechanics refused to use them.
Okay, so he's trying to service like top of the line cars, but he's using just like the worst parts to do it.
Well, it sounds like he was trying to do both. Like he was fixing them, which sounds like was going pretty well, but then he wanted to do the parts business too.
Oh, so it was a separate business. He was in the international import-export business with car parts. Got it. Okay,
yep.
I'm following you now.
You got it. According to a story in The Atlantic, they were so poorly built that one of the mechanics refused to use them. That same article reported that, quote, by 2000, Roverland USA was dead, the Karpoff's mortgage was in default, and creditors were suing. So what's next? Back to selling drugs, of course.
Nice.
Yeah. But this also didn't go well because, as one dispensary owner told The Atlantic, Jeff started trying to sell pot, quote, full of chemicals and shit. So with that ringing endorsement, you have Jeff Karpoff as a failed mechanic, a failed drug dealer, but he still managed to have some prospects. One of his Roverland customers asked him if he wanted to sell solar panels. The prospect of solar got Jeff thinking, and eventually he landed on a revolutionary idea.
Portable generators, as anyone in a hurricane zone will likely tell you, are essential in emergencies or when you're in a remote place where hooking up to a source of electricity is neither possible nor practical, or if you're tailgating at a big football game and you'd rather watch the game on a giant TV in the parking lot than inside the stadium, you got to have a portable generator.
Yeah.
I mean,
have you
come
seen
on.
these people? Have you
Come
seen
on.
these people?
I haven't, but I can imagine it. Every time I go to a live sports event, I go, these chairs are uncomfortable and I can barely see what's happening on the basketball court. I
Right.
wish I was on my comfy couch with my big TV.
Right.
So I could see. You go there for the party, the tailgate party, but you just have
You just bring your comfy chair along.
Yeah, bring your comfy chair along. Exactly.
And your generator, and you plug your big ass TV in.
Exactly. But whatever your situation, portable energy is sometimes a necessity. And for the most part, portable energy is powered by fuel. And by fuel, I mean gasoline. And that's why, for those of us who don't live in hurricane zones, we see long lines at gas stations on the news when a storm is on its way, because people want to buy fuel so they can get the hell out of the hurricane zone. They also probably want some extra gas in case they run out of gas on the bumper-to-bumper freeway full of other people trying to get the hell out of the hurricane zone. And some people also need that gasoline to power their generator to keep their beer cold while they ride out this Category 5 son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, how's that stuff going to stay cold?
Yeah, you need cold beer if you're going to ride out a Category 5. It's
Right.
just, I mean, again, everybody knows that. Now I'm not sure, Caleb, if you've heard about this.
Okay.
But traditional fuel isn't great for the environment. Gasoline, just until, yeah.
I have heard about this.
I mean, that's probably going to be on the CPE quiz
Yep.
at the end. But yeah, so write it down, listener. Traditional fuel such as gasoline and diesel, not good for the environment. And so even if this far from ideal solution of a gas-powered generator to keep your beer cold is a necessity,
And it is.
and as we established it is, let's say someone were to invent a method of portable energy that was sustainable, wind or geothermal or solar. I can't really imagine a portable geothermal generator, but still,
It would be awesome.
I'm not trying to constrain anybody's creativity here, okay? But if you could do it, that would generate some interest, probably a lot of interest, and probably a whole lot of money. So, now that Jeff was in the solar panel business, he, on his very own, came up with this amazing revolutionary idea, a trailer with solar panels. Boom! What? Mind blown. So, in 2008, one of Jeff's Roverland customers pulled together a few people to see the solar trailer. The Atlantic describes the contraption as 2 rows of solar panels, 5 per row, attached to rotating beams, a clever design that lets you lock them upright for aerodynamic transport on the highways and then tilt them towards the sun once you'd parked. This wasn't some niche anti-theft accessory. It was an all-purpose generator, towable anywhere for green power on the go. Did I just record a commercial for DC Solar?
I think you did.
I think I did. That's, yeah. This small group of investors loaned Karpov a few $100,000 to market this invention. The entertainment industry, of all things, quickly showed a bunch of interest, looking for an alternative to the diesel-powered generators that often powered the trailers on movie and TV locations. A few major movies, including Inception, Valentine's Day, and Bad Words, tried them out. Leo, the Leo you're thinking of, he even posted a picture of the DC Solar generator trailers on his Facebook page.
Fancy.
You can't buy that kind of publicity. Like, probably literally, I've never seen Leonardo DiCaprio
On
in
Facebook?
a commercial, and I've never seen him in a commercial.
No, he's not. He doesn't. I don't think he does commercials.
I know. So
Yeah.
you literally can't buy that kind of publicity.
Well said.
So with Hollywood calling, Jeff kept working some angles, going down to Florida to act like he was in the market for a mansion.
As
when
one does.
As one does. Yeah. But in reality, he, 1, was broke, and 2, really just wanted to find some more investors for DC
Yeah.
Solar. But
Right.
it makes sense that you might, pretend to be buying mansions, because if you're trying to get investors, you want people to think that you can buy a mansion because of your cool invention, not
That's
that you've already blown the couple $100,000 of seed money and are still living in your mom's basement, but hopefully not selling meth.
Right. Like that you just blew them all on like go-karts or something.
Right. Although, I don't know, Jeff Karpov kind of has that sort of vibe that he might blow a lot of money on go-karts. In September 2010, Jeff Karpov was introduced to the law firm Nixon Peabody. Nixon Peabody had a well-known tax credits practice, and as luck would have it, there was a big tax credit offered for investments in alternative energy sources. More specifically, there was a 30% investment tax credit available for investments in solar. So, in other words, for every dollar you spent in solar equipment, you could get 30 cents back from the federal government in the form of a tax credit. And as much as people love an innovative alternative energy company, they love tax credits even more than that.
So, how do these tax credits work in the real world? The Atlantic explains it this way. Quote, giant corporations could decide how much they wanted to save in taxes, then, through an investment fund created just for them, buy exactly the number of generators to achieve that figure. All they'd have to put down was 30% of the generator's price, the exact amount they could deduct dollar for dollar from their federal tax returns through the investment tax credit. So, Greg, Kyte, let's give a simple example to help illustrate that.
I love it. Yeah. It's story problem. It's story problem time.
Story problem. Former teacher.
Yeah.
Say you're a rich guy who lives in, I don't know, Omaha, and you want to save a lot in taxes. Let's say $3 million.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. You divide the amount of money that you want to save, $3 million, by 30%, right? Because that's the credit.
Yes.
Yes.
Because to get to how much. So because 3 million divided by 30% equals 10 million, and really what you just did is kind of the backwards way of saying that 30% of 10 million is 3 million. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes. Exactly.
All right. Now, let's say each mobile solar generator costs $50,000 each. That means you'd have to buy 200 of them to get the 10 million, right?
Yep, that checks out.
Okay. According to the explanation, putting down 30% of the generator's price would be, ta-da, $3 million, the amount of tax you want to save. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's still 70% of the cost out there, right?
Right. Because I can pay my down payment of 30%, but also I know there's another 70% waiting for me. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go back to the Atlantic. Quote, DC Solar would not only loan buyers the other 70%, it would pay it back for them with the money it made leasing out generators on their behalf. Now, I do not consider myself to be that smart, but that sounds like a pretty good deal for the buyers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put 30% down, and then DC Solar loans them the rest, and then pays the loan back on their behalf by leasing the generators.
Yeah. It's weird. It makes sense. It's almost like if you pay 30% of down on a house, and then the bank says, cool, we're going to pay the rest of your loan off by using your house as an Airbnb.
Yeah. Would you be okay with that? Probably not.
I think I'm kind of doing that because no, I have a condo in Hawaii that's basically exactly what I'm doing.
Right.
I mean, I'm renting it, not the bank, but that's the only trick. So
right. Well,
yeah, but also weird because it still feels a little weird, but I get it.
Well, apparently Jeff Karpov had a ton of confidence in this business because he had, quote, long-term leases in the works with major telecom, entertainment, and construction companies. So not only would these long-term leases satisfy the loan payments that needed to be made, there'd be money left over for the cash payouts to the owners of the generators.
Okay.
So, and let me just stop for a second here, Greg. You're in the business world. You're doing the business things.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Have you ever in your illustrious career heard of a financing arrangement like this?
No, not at all. Because it's almost, I mean, again, trying to wrap my brain around it, it's like, if you'll pay your down payment on this generator, then I will then go into the generator rental business on your behalf
Yes.
to not just pay off the rest of the loan that I gave you for those generators, but also to make you a profit on top of that, which also implies that Karpov is making a profit too, because he wouldn't do it just for free.
If he wasn't making any money, why would he do that?
Exactly. So yeah, that's so the answer is no. I've never heard anything like that. It's I'm going to say it's objectively weird. I do also want to say that as a lot of our fraud stories go, it would probably fall under the too good to be true kind of scenario, where it's like your down payment gets written off, gets paid back in a tax credit, and then the rest of it you just sit back and make money.
Right. It's just a money machine.
Yeah, it's weird. But the thing that's kind of weird for me is just trying to do the accounting, because the tax saving part of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like if you want to save $3 million on taxes,
Yep.
the only way in this scenario, the only way that you can save $3 million on taxes is by spending $3 million, which I kind of go, wouldn't you be in the same position if you just did absolutely nothing?
I think the answer is no.
Well, I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
I'd say just for that portion of it, I'd say the answer is yes, because the idea is I paid DC Solar $3 million today, and in a few months, the federal government is going to pay me $3 million back.
Yep.
And I kind of go, that doesn't make a whole lot of business sense. Why would you want to pay $3 million today just to get $3 million back? And then as I was just going through this in my brain, I realized it's the only thing that would motivate you to do that is just financial statement stuff, because I'm spending that $3 million on an asset, not on an expense.
Right.
So I'm spending $3 million, but it's not going into my profit and loss and showing like I lost $3 million there.
Right.
But then I also get to show that my tax expense is reduced as a result of doing that. So actually my P&L is going to look $3 million better by doing this. So really, I'm making this move to show my to do financial statement sleight of hand, which I kind of go, that's sort of shitty. That's how I feel about it. But also, I mean, I guess legit if it's all disclosed, but also it seems, like I said, like financial statement sleight of hand, which doesn't sit well with me.
The buyers into this investment fund would only have to put down a relatively small amount of money. They get the tax credits they want, but they don't even have to use the generators or maintain them. And then DC Solar takes care of the leases, so the loan gets paid? What a deal. As you said, Greg, it almost sounds too good to be true.
In March 2011, DC Solar made its first big sale. Sherwin-Williams, the paint company, bought 192 generators for $29 million.
Ooh.
And Karpov was confident he could turn around and lease the generators for more than twice what he initially thought.
Man.
Yeah, things are good outlook for DC Solar. But in relatively short order, cracks are starting to show in DC Solar's business.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the fall after the deal with Sherwin-Williams closed, the paint company sent some people to DC Solar's facility to check out their investment.
Okay.
One of DC Solar's sales executive noticed something a little bit strange about the solar eclipse generators. Quote, only the first most visible rows of the generators were fully assembled. The generators in the rows behind, some 2/3 of the total generators, were in various states of incompletion, though you might not notice if you didn't know what to look for. Jeff, you have rows and rows of unfinished generators you're presenting as finished, the executive recalled telling Karpov. You don't worry about that, Karpov replied. Classy.
I bet that's what it sounds. That's about what it sounds like.
Also, classy. Good. That's good. That's a good business leader. Shut the fuck up and get back to selling some damn generators. So mind your damn business. On top of that, there were some performance issues.
Oh,
Some examples include power cutting out and plunging into darkness the makeup trailers for Disney's Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day.
that is a bad day.
At an MTV concert, Pink's trailer went without air conditioning.
Oh, that's a bad day too. Ooh.
Some entrepreneurs who thought the generators might aid in disaster relief were surprised to find that plugging in a single hairdryer tipped the breaker. And if you've ever
I'm
been
no electrician. But that's a bad sign.
I've never been in a hurricane, but I got to assume if you've been in a hurricane, you kind of need a hairdryer. I mean, I don't, but I'd say many people do.
Because of the rain.
And the hair.
Right.
And then if your generator just won't even, I mean, it's like, why even have it?
Yeah, but please, hopefully you're not standing in floodwaters while you're trying to blow dry your hair.
True. Good point. That's a pro tip right there.
Yeah.
That will also be on the CPE quiz. But all of these performance issues really weren't a problem. When malfunctions happened, DC Solar had a plan B, and that plan B was just to back up the solar generators with diesel power generators because, it's a principles based business.
Right.
So
That's clearly.
just go,
Let's just go get the gas.
Mission, vision, values, it all just aligns perfectly. Finally, to make matters even worse, the company had a difficult time getting anyone to commit to their long-term leases of the generators.
Okay.
So remember, the revenue from the leases was supposed to finance the 70% of the generator's purchase, and DC Solar was going to pay its customer any excess cash that they received from said leases on top of the 70% that they were repaying on behalf of those customers. And if the company couldn't make that work, then they'd just have a bunch of generators just sitting around collecting dust. And if those generators were sitting around collecting dust, then DC Solar's customers couldn't claim the tax credits even. And if no one could claim the tax credits, then DC Solar might not have very many customers for very much longer. And it turns out it wasn't easy being green for DC Solar. They needed a new plan.
In mid-2012, Jeff Karpov worked with his CPA, Ronald Roach, and DC Solar's general counsel, Ari Lauer, on a new plan. This plan involved using money from new purchasers of solar eclipses, the generators, to pay the leases to the earlier purchasers of solar eclipses. Right? Because they couldn't lease enough of them.
Yeah, that sounds legit.
Okay. Sort of. No?
No, not at all.
Now, while you take a minute to think about that, think about this too. Apparently, inside the company, this clumsy little maneuver was referred to as re-rent. Quote, many of the hallmarks of a classic Ponzi scheme, the Atlantic piece stated. And to top it all off, because of the generous tax credits, the American taxpayer was subsidizing the whole damn thing.
Yeah, I immediately, when you say using money from new purchasers to pay the leases for early purchasers, it's like, yeah,
those are the magic words.
Ponzi schemes.
Ponzi scheme.
But I love rebranding Ponzi schemes as re-rent.
Re-rent.
Brilliant. That marketing department of DC Solar, top notch.
All you need is a copywriter. Yeah,
that's it.
But that's how it goes, right? Lots of startups, they have to get creative.
Yeah.
This re-renting stuff was just temporary for DC Solar. In the meantime, Jeff Karpov was enjoying himself a lot. And that's no surprise. But what is kind of surprising is that for a guy running a sustainable energy business, Jeff really liked gas-powered things.
Now, again, mission, vision, values.
For example, Jeff loved collecting classic muscle cars.
Right, that he converted to all electric, right?
As a matter of fact, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
A couple of notable models. He had a replica of the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Not problematic in any way.
No. I can't think of a single thing about that car that could be problematic.
Yeah.
Also, a 1978 Pontiac Firebird from Smokey and the Bandit that was once owned by Burt Reynolds.
That's cool.
That is kind of a cool car. Have you seen
that?
that? Do you know that car? Can you picture that car in your mind?
Yeah, I can. And Smokey and the Bandit was that was a favorite of mine as a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. Jerry Reed played the trucker in Smokey and the Bandit. So yeah.
Nice.
Deep cut. Also Jerry Reed, he had the hit song Amos Moses that no one except me and my brother know about, but it was a wonderful song. Look it up on Spotify.
I bet there's a listener out there that knows this song and
That's going, hell yeah, I didn't think that I would have a reference to Amos Moses while I'm listening to a fraud podcast, but you just did, and it was worth it.
Beyond just buying up lots of cars that use lots of gas, DC Solar's largest marketing partner was none other than NASCAR. And if you are not familiar with NASCAR, I don't know where you've been, but let's just give you a brief explanation of what that consists of. It's a bunch of cars driving fast in circles for 4 hours. Gas-powered cars.
We can't state this enough. Mission, vision, values.
The company sponsored the cars of drivers like Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson, and it was even the lead sponsor of an Xfinity Series race, the DC Solar 300 in 2018. Among the other amazing details of this story, many of which come from this Atlantic article that we've mentioned a few times. It's in the show notes, and it was written by Ariel Sabar. One of my favorites is the sign that marked Jeff Karpoff's parking spot at DC Solar's headquarters. The sign, all it said was JMFC. Now, Greg. Any ideas what that might stand for?
I have money that I'm willing to place on what that stands for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's got to be
your best guess.
Jeff motherfucking Karpov.
Correct.
Yeah.
Apparently, that was the acronym for the nickname that he had given himself.
Oh, he'd given himself that.
He gave himself that nickname.
Again, classy.
Yeah. What are the mission, values, vision, whatever?
Yeah.
You do it so much better.
Yeah.
Anyway, he also bestowed the motherfucking honorific to his wife Paulette, the company's COO, and to their kids, Lauren and Matt. So, just to keep everybody straight, their parking spaces were marked PMFC, LMFC, and MMFC, respectively. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you give yourself and your whole family those nicknames unless you are ludicrously overconfident.
Right. There's definitely a Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby sort of feel to that whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
But listen, I honestly can't blame the guy. In less than 3 years, DC Solar had sold nearly 1,200 generators for $174 million. But in July 2013, just over 2 years since Jeff Karpoff had closed his first big deal with Sherwin-Williams, he had a problem nobody wants: the IRS.
A partner at Nixon Peabody expressed surprise to Jeff Karpov in an email that the IRS had decided to review DC Solar's deal with Sherwin-Williams. He said, "Is this even old enough to be audited?" And while DC Solar was fending off that, an investment advisor named James Howard Jr., who was helping a bank purchase over $70 million in generators, wanted proof that 80% to 90% of the company's generators had been leased as Jeff Karpov had claimed. This was a problem, of course, because it was not true.
I hate it when that happens.
Right. Well, listen, the truth is that only about 5% of their generators had been leased, a far cry from 80 to 90%.
Yes.
So
Yes, it is.
DC Solar tried to blow off Howard, but he wasn't having it. So Karpov's CPA, Ronald Roach, leaned on the company's CFO, Rob Carmen. Roach had gotten Carmen the job at DC Solar when Carmen was down on his luck, and Carmen became a big shot at DC Solar, pulling down nearly $500,000 a year in salary. This was enough for Carmen to pull together bogus reports that showed how generators were being leased and for how much. But the bullshit didn't stop there. In September of 2015, Karpov asked his VP of operations, Ryan Guidry, to find someone, anyone, who would just sign some phony leases. These leases were supposed to be to T-Mobile for 1,000 generators and worth $13 million a year. Jeff Karpov told Guidry that he would pay him and whoever signed the bogus leases $1 million each. Caleb, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money
for some autographs.
Yeah. I have to say, can you imagine being that guy where, you know, you have this job, you're a VP of operations, get into the office that day, and you're making your little to-do list, and be like, and at the top of that list, it says, find a guy to sign fake leases.
Right.
That's your whole list.
Hire Patsy.
Hire hire Patsy to forge things.
Yeah, exactly. The very first line item.
Collect $1 million, number 2.
Exactly. And around the same time, DC Solar had a couple of other big deals brewing. One with the International Speedway Corporation, which runs Daytona International Speedway and other race tracks, to lease them 1,500 generators for 10 years, which was a deal worth $150 million.
That's a big deal.
That's a big damn deal. And the second was with Geico, the insurance company owned by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. Geico agreed to buy nearly 8,000 generators for a whopping $1.2 billion.
Forget what I said earlier. That is actually a big deal.
That is, yeah, that's
a
ridiculous.
monster. That's a monster deal.
Right. That's huge. Well, because, I mean, just a second ago, Jeff was excited that he'd made $174 million, and now Geico's coming along, giving him almost 10 times that.
Yeah, right.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The tax credit on that deal alone was worth $377 million. It was this massive deal with Geico that allowed DC Solar to move its headquarters to Benicia from Concord in 2016. And come on, everybody knows how much better Benicia is than Concord. Jeez. Am I right?
Am I right?
But there was one small problem.
Okay.
DC Solar had pretty much stopped manufacturing the solar eclipse generator.
Oh, no.
That seems like kind of a crucial thing for a generator manufacturing company.
The thing that you're supposed to be selling to people you aren't making anymore?
Yeah, it's kind of it's one of those you had one job sort of situations, and they didn't do it. Oh, yeah. Also, did I say there was a problem? Actually, there wasn't a problem, because if you recall, these are portable generators, which means they can be anywhere.
Oh, okay.
So helpful in a situation like this.
So helpful.
As the Atlantic article explained, quote, "Here one day, there the next," had basically been the sales pitch. But they had to prove that the generators were somewhere, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To accomplish this, the company had a, quote, independent engineer create, quote, commissioning reports that had a VIN and a 20-point physical inspection for each unit. But that independent engineer was one of Jeff Karpov's high school buddies named Joseph Bayless, not exactly independent and as it turns out, not exactly an engineer either, because he was not an engineer. Nevertheless, these bogus commissioning reports satisfied some of DC Solar's customers, but not all of them. Some of those customers wanted to actually see their solar eclipse generators up close. So, what about those pesky buyers who wanted to see their generators in person? Again, no problem with that. Karpov, this is a quote from The Atlantic, says Karpov and his workers used putty knives, acetone, and mineral spirits to remove VIN stickers from generators belonging to earlier buyers, then applied to those same units the VIN numbers of whatever buyer just happened to be visiting. To dupe buyers who wanted real-time data on their unit's whereabouts, workers buried GPS transponders in out-of-the-way locations minus the generators they were billed as being attached to. Inspectors willing to drive hours to see their solar eclipses in the field were the hardest to misdirect. Karpov had employees work overnight delivering generators in the nick of time to make it look like they'd been there all along. DC Solar sold 17,000 generators from 2011 to 2018, but only about 6,000 would be found to actually exist at all.
In 2016, two things happened that help illustrate just how weird DC Solar's situation was. Thing one, the IRS had examined two of the company's early deals, the one with Sherwin-Williams that we mentioned, and another with another company called Aaron Burr LLC, who obviously, was owned by someone who obviously had something against Hamilton. Right.
Well,
it's the only explanation here.
They acquired the Alexander Hamilton LLC and then did away with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In both cases, the IRS did not like what it saw. It determined that the fair market value of each generator was about $13,000. DC Solar had been selling them for over 10 times that amount, $150,000. Now, if you remember how the tax credits work, the buyers were putting down 30% of the purchase price, right? At $150K, that would be about $45,000. That's what the credit would be worth. But by the IRS's count, the tax credit should only be worth about $3,900.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
But it's a problem on both sides, and I think that because again, you can buy a Honda Civic, or you can buy a Range Rover, and you got to go, okay, how are you determining the market value of a Honda Civic versus Range Rover? They're both just cars that get you from point A to point B.
They both have four wheels,
but at the same time, the IRS can go, yeah, no, it's not. I think they have pretty broad latitude to just make reality conform to what they want it to be.
Right.
But also clearly calling a lot of bullshit on Jeff Karpov and DC Solar.
Yeah. The IRS said that, quote, DC Solar's transaction structure was a sham involving a mere circular movement of money to prop up a vastly overstated purchase price in order to impermissibly maximize the energy credit. Okay. And thing two, remember I said there were two things.
Yep.
The other weird thing going on was that DC Solar had been chosen to be a partner in the Obama administration's Smart City Challenge, which recognized cities' efforts to use climate-friendly technology. DC Solar was one of the corporate partners that provided money and resources. It pledged to, quote, offer the winning city $1.5 million worth of electric vehicle chargers and mobile solar generators. DC Solar was in good company with some prominent names, including Alphabet's Sidewalk Labs, Paul Allen's Vulcan Incorporated, and Amazon Web Services.
All of this attention for DC Solar essentially made Jeff Karpov a living legend to those around him. One employee called him Willy Wonka. Another said he was the Thomas Edison of the West Coast. Then there was the flashy stuff. Jeff and his wife Paulette were great at being nouveau rich. Did you put French in the script just to piss me off, Caleb?
I did.
Mission accomplished. Mission, vision, values. Anyways, Here's a non-exhaustive list of all the tacky ways that Jeff and Paulette were throwing their money around.
I love this part of the episode.
It's
Every episode.
Every episode. Seeing how people who stole money use the stolen proceeds is typically wonderful.
Yeah.
1, Jeff and Paulette had homes in Cabo and in Las Vegas.
Oh, that's kind of seems basic, but okay.
Yeah, well, again, sarcastically I say classy. We told you about the NASCAR sponsorship stuff,
Yeah.
but the Karpovs also bought the city of Martinez a professional independent league baseball team,
Oh.
the Martinez Clippers.
Now that goes beyond conspicuous consumption, Greg.
Right. That it almost makes him seem like a civic-minded man who's trying
Yes.
to give back to the community that he took so much from. Is that how you say that?
I think that's how you would say it. Yeah.
Nice. And then remember those muscle cars we mentioned earlier, the General Lee and the Burt Reynolds Firebird? Well, Jeff and Paulette had a lot more cars, a total of 149 cars to be precise. And as far as we can tell, the vast majority of them used gasoline.
Yeah.
Again, sort of weird for a guy with a green energy fortune. He also owned a stake in a Napa Valley winery, company Christmas parties that featured performances by Sugar Ray, Pitbull, and Big and Rich. And the most cringeworthy thing we found, I'm quoting the Atlantic article here, quote, at the end of all hands meetings, he would pull hundreds of dollars from his pocket and give it to whichever employee best guessed the sum.
On the morning of December 18th, 2018, 175 federal agents from the FBI, the IRS Criminal Investigation, and the U.S. Marshals raided both DC Solar headquarters and the Karpovs Martinez home. 175 agents.
And 3 different agencies. You're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
If that happens, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's not looking good.
Yeah.
The agents located the giant collection of cars and 1.7 million in cash in a safe at the Karpovs' house.
Because, you just need to have 1.7 million just in walking around money.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never know.
A statement from the Karpovs' attorney a couple days later said that they were, quote, surprised and disappointed with the actions taken by the government earlier this week, which appeared to relate to an ongoing tax dispute. DC Solar filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection less than 2 months later. So much for a tax dispute.
Right.
In early February 2019. That filing showed that DC Solar owed more than $4 million to the NASCAR racing team it sponsored, another $1 million to the International Speedway Corp. Remember them? And $750,000 to 4 other racetracks. Oh, and there was like $475,000 to NetJets, which, because that's something that you do.
Because that's a necessity.
Yeah.
A private jet rental. I mean, that's you can't not do that.
Uber for the air.
Right. What kind of low class CEO is gonna fly commercial?
No one. All right. Jeff and Paulette agreed to step down as CEO and COO. And so you might be wondering at this point, how did they get found out?
I'm wondering, how did they not get found out? But also, please.
Yeah. It was actually, no surprise, a whistleblower. According to The Atlantic, an employee, Sebastian Jano, had discovered the whole circular sales leasing scheme thing, and he actually confronted Jeff Karpov and the company's general counsel about it. When they tried to explain the method to the madness, he quit, and he filed a whistleblower report with the Securities and Exchange Commission, who then told the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of California, who contacted the FBI.
That's how they all got involved.
That's how things go. Yeah. Another thing that happened involved Karpov's old high school buddy turned fake independent engineer who created fake commissions reports, Joseph Bayless. Did I say Jeff Bayless? Joseph Bayless.
Jeff Bezos.
Soon after the raid, Karpov asked Bayless to go to Las Vegas and destroy a bunch of phony VIN stickers that were stored there. The best.
Yeah, that's what innocent people do.
That's exactly right. And apparently, Joseph Bayless did this. But once the feds got a hold of him in July 2019, he figured the jig was up and he started to cooperate.
So he was singing like a bird, too.
Oh, yeah. The Department of Justice issued a press release in October 2019 announcing that Bayless and Ronald Roach, that's Karpoff's CPA, pleaded guilty. According to the release, quote, Roach and his co-conspirators used fraudulent financial statements to hide from investors the company's use of later investor payments to pay financial obligations the company made to earlier investors. That's the classic Ponzi scheme stuff, man.
Yep, textbook.
And as for Bayless, quote, he admitted to preparing thousands of false reports certifying the existence and operating specifications of thousands of mobile solar generators sold to investors. Bayless knew that the generators didn't exist, and he knew investors would rely on his reports, saying that they did exist. Oh, and he also confessed to destroying all of those phony VIN numbers. Bayless got 3 years in prison. Quickly, more of Karpoff's inner circle started to go down. Robert Carmen, the CFO, pleaded guilty in December 2019 and was eventually sentenced to 6 years in prison. Ryan Guidry, the guy who had to find a patsy to sign the phony T-Mobile leases, he pleaded guilty on January 14th, 2020, and was eventually sentenced to 6.5 years. The patsy, a guy by the name of Alan Hansen, who ended up getting a do-nothing job in addition to that $1 million, he pleaded guilty and got 8 years.
That's insane.
That's a stiff sentence.
The patsy got 1.5 years longer than the guy
who found the patsy.
Yeah. But, legal. We still don't understand.
We still don't
justice.
understand sentencing. Yeah, we still don't understand sentencing. And on January 24th, 2020, both Jeff and Paulette Karpoff pleaded guilty to charges related to the fraud. For Jeff, it was conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. For Paulette, it was conspiracy to commit an offense against the United States and money laundering. Paulette was sentenced to 11 years, while Jeff was sentenced to 30 years.
That's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. Whew.
But fortunately for them, that was the only thing that would be bad that would happen in the year 2020.
Yeah, that's quite a way to start your year.
That
was quite a way to start your 2020.
Yeah, you're just rolling up on a pandemic with a 30-year sentence.
Yeah,
no big deal.
Yeah. There are a few loose ends that I think we can tie up. Among them, the Martinez Clippers. Remember the baseball team?
Yeah,
they were quickly no longer a baseball team.
What?
Yeah, the city of Martinez ended its licensing agreement with the team for non-payment of fees.
Shocker.
Yeah. The Karpoffs, they forfeited their stake in the winery. Nixon Peabody, remember the law firm that helped push the tax credit portion?
Yep.
They settled a big lawsuit with DC Solar investors. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway admitted that they got duped, writing in a quarterly filing that their $377 million in tax credits were probably invalid. Oh, and I suppose you're wondering about the cars. Were you wondering about the cars?
I'm so wanting to know what happened with all those sweet cars.
Sweet rides. Okay. The U.S. Marshals Service held an auction in October 2019. They sold 148 cars, raising about $8 million. Burt Reynolds' old Firebird went for $181,000.
But wait a second, Caleb.
Yes.
There was 149 cars. What happened with the other car?
Which one didn't sell? It was probably a Tesla.
It probably was. Probably one of those
one electric car.
Cybertrucks.
Yeah.
It's fucking Cybertrucks.
Oh, man. All told, DC Solar was the biggest fraud in the history of the Eastern District of California. Okay, Greg, Kyte, did we learn anything?
Yes.
Oh.
Caleb, Newquist. We always learn something on this show.
Okay.
One of the things that stuck out to me was, we've said this on so many shows that the best fraudsters are super smart and they're great at what they do.
Yep.
And this case very clearly contradicts all of that. So every now and then.
But wait a minute. But Jeff invented a thing.
He did.
But it didn't work.
But he also, I don't know. I don't know the guy. Maybe he's an evil genius. He didn't really come across as that way.
Yeah.
To me, in the research.
Okay.
So while I would say that a lot of the best fraudsters are super smart and are great at what they do, some fraudsters, as we saw in this case, are just dumb and greedy and weirdly lucky.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's the case as well.
Yeah.
Another thing that it's actually learning from this case and from the case about the polygamist who used all the biodiesel tax credits.
Yep.
That green technology and green tax credits seem to be somewhat of a breeding ground for fraud, wouldn't you say? I mean,
the credits are very generous.
Yeah.
And so if you can somehow, ham fist that into your scheme,
right,
you are going to find some willing victims.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think, and I think because of the generosity, that's why they're probably targeted for fraud. And also, I think on top of that, I mean, my sense is that there's a lot of businesses out there that just for kind of a PR move want to associate themselves with green technology.
Absolutely.
So there's there's demand for green technology. There's a big reward for green tax credits. And so with both the demand and the reward, I think that people, whether they're very smart or dumb and lucky, they're going to find fraud in this area. So for all of you federal regulators listening to the show, and I know there's maybe one, that's something to keep in mind.
I would say one thing I would note, though, however, is that despite the generosity of these sustainable energy credits and similar credits like them, the audit rate for companies that use them is very, very high.
Right.
And so if I am a enterprising fraudster, I would be avoiding those for that reason. And this is not legal advice, but I would avoid them for that very reason because of such a high audit rate related to those transactions. Right. Like, find a more, below the radar kind of scam, that the authorities are not really looking for in their everyday, in their day-to-day stuff.
Right. Well, and that relates to actually that one certain vignette that we talked about in the case where the IRS started looking at the Sherwin-Williams tax credit specifically, and who was it? Was it the lawyer?
It was the
CPA?
lawyer. Yeah.
The lawyer was like, this is too soon. How can we just filed this tax this tax return and they're already auditing us? It's like, that to your point,
right?
That's how seriously that and again, it's probably one of those things where the bigger green tax credit you take, the more likely you are going to get scrutinized for that tax credit.
Yep.
The last thing, and this is more of a clarification question, because the meth was part of the story pretty early on. But then, like we said, Paulette came around and he cleaned up. Was any indication in what you saw that meth was still around later on in the story?
No, because what came up, like, there were some anecdotes in that Atlantic article about how, like, when Jeff would try to shoot like videos, he would really have a hard time talking about green energy and talking about muscle cars. He had no problems with, like, he'd be shooting green energy videos and he would screw them up, and like sometimes he would shoot tequila and that would help. But but no, I didn't see anything that suggested that the drugs were still in the picture. But there was one more anecdote that so we didn't talk about it in kind of the body of the story, but Jeff and Paulette had they were planning to disappear. They're going to try to leave the country.
Oh, they're going to run for it.
They were going to make a run for it because it felt like things were coming in. And there's a couple of reasons that it didn't happen. Number one was during the raid, their passports were seized, and there's kind of this funny moment where Karpoff calls the office and he says, "Hey, our passports should be on my desk. Are they still there?" And somebody goes, No, the feds took him. And Jeff says, oh, fuck. And he hangs up the phone.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Another should have kept those with my $1.7 million
in cash.
in my safe.
Right. Yeah.
Probably should have.
So that's why they didn't get away. But Jeff also was he had said to some people that he had, I am not kidding. He told some people that he had $500,000 worth of meth buried in a cemetery, and that was his insurance policy essentially.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So that was still whether I don't get the sense that he was using drugs. I just don't think he would have been able to do all the things that he was doing, even though he was running a fraud and not a legitimate business. I still don't think you would be able to do meth and be able to run that kind of a fraud.
See, and I disagree.
Okay.
With you. Yeah, because we clearly stated that Jeff himself was using putty knives and acetone to scratch off like a bazillion VIN numbers and then replace a billion VIN numbers. It didn't say that he delegated that. It said he helped do that. And I mean, again, not speaking from experience here, but I'm pretty sure if you need to remove a bunch of VIN numbers and replace a bunch of VIN numbers, one of the ways you can facilitate that is with meth. And also,
you make a fine point, Greg.
I think you would also possibly enjoy it if you were doing that on meth. So you're saying there's no evidence. I'd say there's at least possibly an indication that meth was still a factor in the whole situation.
Great.
Well, that's it for this episode. Remember, don't give yourself motherfucking as a middle name or a nickname, and don't give your wife motherfucking as a middle name or a nickname, and please don't give your children motherfucking as a middle name or as a nickname.
And also remember, 15 minutes could save you 15% on car insurance, but 8,000 non-existent solar generators will not save you $377 million.
If you want to drop us a line, send us an email at ohmyfraud@earmarkcpe.com. Caleb, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn /Caleb Newquist. Greg, where can people find you on the internet?
Let's do the same. LinkedIn /Greg Kyte. Also, I just got married. Thank you. About a week and a half ago. I have not been on LinkedIn for probably a couple of months. I think actually I went on there today. I'm lying. I went on there today simply to repost a thing that someone said, please go on and repost this. But I didn't do anything other than what I was requested to do. So all that to say, be patient if you are trying to.
What if somebody wants to send you a wedding gift, Greg?
Yeah, my Venmo is Greg Kyte.
Bingo.
There you go.
All right. Oh My Fraud is written by Greg Kyte and myself. Our producer is Zach Frank. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. If you listen on Earmark, you can earn free CPE for listening. That's a good thing. If you need
such a good thing.
And if you don't need it, you're the best.
Yeah, you're our favorite.
You're our favorites.
If you're just the purists.
Yeah, totally. Join us next time for more avarice, swindlers, and scams from stories that will make you say, "Oh my fraud."
My fraud.